Hey everybody, welcome back to Emma's Pearls. This is episode 18, and today we have with us Robert Messick, who is doing a Book of Mormon Census. We also have Kim Smith. She is a Joseph Smith descendant, also through Alexander, and she's hosting with me today. Robert, will you tell us about the project you're working on?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me. A couple things. I host the content, the YouTube series called Book of Mormon Editions, and on YouTube, we decided to kind of review various copies of the Book of Mormon. And through this project, a lot of people, I started doing early copies of the Book of Mormon, specifically in 1830 volume, things like that. And a lot of people came to me and said, how many surviving copies of the original 1830 Book of Mormon still exist? And also, Joseph Smith was involved in another other series of the Book of Mormon, 1837 in Kirtland, 1840 in Nauvoo. Brigham Young was authorized in 1841 in Great Britain. He came back with quite a few of them. 1842 was another printing in Nauvoo. So there's quite a few that Joseph Smith was involved in, if you will. And a lot of people say, well, what are the stories of these existing copies? And no one had actually done the research around how many still survive today. And I was talking to a couple of librarians, and they said, well, it's about time to do a book census, or it's appropriate to do a book census. The case study was a Gutenberg Bible had 188 copies, and now we've only recorded about 45 of them still existing. So it's really interesting seeing the Gutenberg Bible census. And I kind of was inspired to say, well, maybe we should do a Book of Mormon census. And so our purpose is, in the next couple of years, we're coming up to the 200th anniversary of the Book of Mormon in the year 2030. And we'd really like to know the condition details and the surviving editions of specifically the 1830 printing of the Book of Mormon and others. And so we've decided to do this in the next few years to kind of see the characteristics, the stories, provenance is wonderful to talk about regarding early copies of the Book of Mormon. And so I'd like to spend some time now on that and kind of go over some of the interesting Book of Mormons that were variously touched by maybe some of the Smith families, and go through that. So the website is called bookofmormoncensus.com.
Great, yeah. And when did you begin this project again?
We officially announced it September of 1823, which is the anniversary of Joseph Smith being angelically visited to go find the golden plates. And so it was appropriate. It was September 22nd, 23rd of 2023, the 200th anniversary of Joseph Smith's visit by the angel. So,
Oh, wow. And how many have you found up to this point?
so this is a work in progress, and I've got a lead list of several hundred. Right now, the copies of the 1830 is about 100 that we've recorded currently, and I've got, once again, leads of about double that. And then also other notable copies or other editions. We're getting it, and so the book census has, I think, several hundred records currently. And once again, depending on when you look at it, we add to it almost every week, trying to make sure that we add more. The librarians have been wonderful. Most of the early copies of the Book of Mormon are in special collections in university libraries. And the librarians have done a great job preserving and making sure that they're available for long-lasting details. And so a lot of times when I connect with the university librarians, they're very excited about this. And so we're working on the university libraries, and the church library has given some support in the future. And also we're working with private owners to make sure that any details that ownership is left confidential and that they're anonymous, but we're really wanting to make sure that we at least have a copy count of how many is there. So it's a combination of working relationships with universities, the church library, and private owners to make sure that we're all confident about getting information on a census website.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting how many universities have them. Like I saw Stanford, Texas, Colorado, Kansas, St. Louis, Pepperdine, Cincinnati. I mean, obviously BYU. Like a lot of these colleges. I'm curious how they end up in these colleges.
Well, most of the time, estates will donate their libraries to universities. So over time, you have various collectors that will give it to the libraries. What I discovered was that in the after World War II, there was a act of Congress that gave grants and funding to smaller libraries to bulk up their libraries to compete with the larger, top 10 or Ivy League universities. And so a lot of them did acquire or have grant money to acquire. And the 1830 Book of Mormon was kind of a appropriate one for them to acquire. So it's kind of interesting that smaller universities have notes saying, yeah, this was acquired by, and I can't remember what act it was, but it was an act of Congress that gave grant money to universities to bulk up their universities. So interesting that these small universities will have them laced in their book stacks as well.
It's very interesting.
One of the things I wanted to ask is I really liked on your website how you talk about this is a way for you to bring these copies close to people who will never get a chance to see them. That's one of the purposes of this website. And I wanted to ask in particular about the 1830 Palmyra edition. Is that particularly significant in your research, and have you faced challenges trying to track those surviving copies down?
So the 1830 Palmyra is kind of the keystone in what we're actively pursuing. And then as universities have others, we'll ask about the others as well. So most of the time it's the 1830. University libraries, I think that I ran a WorldCat search and had 154 locations. And then they had multiple copies inside those locations. And so we're actively looking at the 1830 Book of Mormon. And you're right. If any of your viewers or listeners have seen a copy of the Book of Mormon, specifically the 1830, there's some spirit to there, and it's very electrifying to kind of see it. And the 3 or 4 places I'd say, Church History Library in Salt Lake, the Church Museum in Salt Lake, BYU has one on display. If you go back to visit Palmyra, New York, the E.B. Grandin office and the Hill Cumorah location, visitor center has them. And so it's interesting seeing them on display. And seeing them on display, they do a really good job to make sure that they're preserved and everyone can look at it. I just found that the Seattle Temple has a book on display, and the Frankfurt, Germany temple has a book on display. So it's random that these places would have volumes of the Book of Mormon to be on display. But if you do have a chance to see one on display, it's great. If you're in Utah, a lot of the rare book dealers will have them. And then certainly if you know a book collector or a private person that has one, it's worth seeing to kind of just hold and saying, ooh, wow, this feels good. So
yeah, it's I have a friend out in Utah that has a few copies, and also has Joseph's Hebrew lexicon that he used in the School of the Prophets. So yeah, when you hold those things, especially if you're a descendant, it's just there's a connection you can't deny, and I'm so glad you're preserving these items and being able to bring it out so people can see. I was wondering about the process of authenticating and the provenance, and how, what has been your challenge with that, especially with those who have these books in private collections?
Good question. And they are hard to duplicate, and you can tell. I've got a couple here. This one is a replica, and you can see I love replicas, and you can usually see that a replica is a little bit better. There was an artisan by the name of Steve Blake who took these replica copies and would ageify them and make them a little bit more worn down, things like that. And he did it as an art project, and I really have respect for him because he's not a charlatan at all. He specifically says these are artistic volumes and should not be taken as old. And once again, any of the old ones, you can really see that they are what they are. And what we've also seen is that they've been repaired. Many of them have been repaired. I am okay with having a book restorer restore some of the leather, or reinforce the binding to make sure that they stay there. One person told me, if you have if you find a Grandpa's barn, and inside Grandpa's barn is an old 50s Porsche, would you want to clean the leather and kind of put oil in the car and clean it up? And yeah, of course you would. And so with these books, instead of it deteriorating in the next 50 years, you now have a book that can last another 100 years because of some restoration. So if it's done tastefully, you can kind of tell that there has been some restoration done on them, but they're still originals. Sometimes as well, specifically the title page will be missing. And so you do have what's called a facsimile, or like a photocopy or a replica that you can insert in. And some pages have been inserted and cleaned up. But in general, you can really tell the originals versus a replica. For example, if you wanted to go through it, what I wanted to spend some time on today, especially talking with the Smith family, is that there's quite a few volumes that were specifically noted, and their provenance is directly related to the Smith family. And I really am excited to show you folks a couple of details. And if you want me to screen share, I can certainly screen share.
Absolutely.
So this is Emma Smith's copy of the 1841 Book of Mormon. And it's the great story behind it. John Adams's grandson and nephew came through in the May of 1844, and they came through Nauvoo, Illinois, and spent a day looking through Illinois and having a meal with Joseph and Emma. And let me make sure that I've got more of it. This is recorded on the book Census, and what happened was, as a gift, Emma gave this copy to the Adams family, and you'll see that.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll see that Joseph Smith did an inscription on his. Did an inscription, and the Adams relative said, "This the above is the autograph of the chief of the Mormons, who gave one of his books." In Nauvoo, in Illinois, in the 15th of May, 1844. And so if you know this, 15th of May, 1844 was a month before the martyrdom. And so this is Joseph Smith's signature, and it is Emma's copy.
No. Wow, it's so ornate. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And you'll look here that it has Emma... It's got Emma's inscription on it. Wow. So this is interesting. This is an 1841 copy of the Book of Mormon. And if you'll notice, 1841 is... get back on the screen sharing. 1841 was the ones that Brigham Young organized to print in Great Britain. And he made about 50 of them that were really ornate, the black leather with a lot of ornamentation on it. And he gave, I think that there's about 50 of them or so that he gave to various. The Pratt family had quite a few. The Smith family had some. Brigham Young gave a couple to his family, things like that. And so he had one that was for Emma Smith, and he gifted it to Emma Smith. And my thought is that around this time, there wasn't much animosity because of the martyrdom. Didn't happen yet. And so Emma just had an extra copy of the Book of Mormon because she actually had her original 1830, and she had other copies. And so this one was an extra that she gave to the Adams family. So the one that I showed you is actually in the Adams Presidential Library in Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
And so if you go, it's actually part of a national park. If you go to the property there for the presidential library. You can kind of see it, and actually, a lot of people ask to see that particular book. So,
Wow. It
Wow.
is, it's beautiful.
yeah.
And just throw in that actually tomorrow is the death anniversary for Emma on
Yeah.
April
Okay.
30. So,
And her twins,
yeah,
Thaddeus and Loisa.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
So
That's,
you had mentioned, and I'll do another one as well. Make sure that I've got this. You had mentioned the School of the Prophets, and this one is Frederick G. Williams's copy. Let's see if I can do this one. So this one is Frederick G. Williams's copy, and it's beautiful. It's been redone, and it's a beautiful book. And the oral tradition is that this one was in the School of the Prophets, and this one has quite a few inscriptions on it. And we think that some of the inscriptions are actually Joseph Smith inscriptions inside on this one, as they were doing through the School of the Prophets. And Frederick G. Williams had this volume as well. So it's Frederick G. Williams' inscriptions, and then there's a couple that have Joseph Smith's inscriptions on it. So once again, Frederick G. Williams' copy. Go from there.
very cool.
This one is interesting. It's a 1830 Book of Mormon that actually is without a cover. And the Providence says that this was from Israel A. Smith, which was the president of the RLDS Church and grandson to Joseph Smith, and came through the Simmons family. And the Simmons family found it it was given to the Smith family. It was given to the Simmons family, and it was found in the attic of a Smith home. So it's been preserved in laminated volumes and laminated sheets, and it doesn't have the copy anymore, but it is the Smith family 1830 Book of Mormon through Israel Smith.
Wow.
Not sure if you guys have seen this one. This one was interesting as well. Let's see, Census.
You'll have to show a lot. I'm sure we haven't seen very many.
Yeah. I'm so in awe. I can't ask questions.
Yeah.
I'm just like, drinking all this in.
So this is an 1840 copy of the Book of Mormon, and if you see an 1840 copy, it's a little different. The book plate has some different looks on it, and the ribbing is a little different, and the sizing is different. So if you actually see an 1830 compared to an 1840, the 1840 volumes were a little smaller. But in this particular volume, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry, wrong one. Same thing, an 1840 volume of the Book of Mormon, they had a book plate sticker. And a book plate is basically a sticker that gives you the library of who it's owned by. And if you see, this is a library sticker, or a book plate sticker called Private Library of Joseph Smith, Nauvoo, Illinois. And so the history behind these bookplate stickers is Joseph ordered them and got them in around February or winter time of 1844. And so he didn't have much time to put all of the stickers in all of his books or whatever, and there were quite a few that were loose. But we know that Joseph III received these bookplate stickers as well. So we kind of say this is Smith family. We don't know if this is Joseph Smith himself or Joseph III's copy, other than these were the bookplate stickers that were given and created by Joseph Smith in February of 1844. And so this is a Smith copy of the Book of Mormon with their bookplate sticker.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Beautiful copy. You can see,
Yeah.
They did pretty ornate and nice decorations, things like that. And once again, you pasted into the insides of it so that you could tell who it's for or who it belongs to, especially when these books were given out or loaned out, and then you have to give them back. But where's my book and who has my book? And then you look at a book, oh, this is Joseph's, I got to get it back to him. So
Yeah. I'm curious because I thought I saw some writing in one of the pictures there.
let's see.
I'll
There
just-
is some ink marks. Let's see if there is one. Oh yeah. Looks like it didn't go through very well. Let's see if there's any more. Nope. So that's it. But I do want to give you an inscription one. Let's see if I can show you this one. 838. So this is super interesting. It's an 1830 Book of Mormon. And if you notice, the Book of Mormon had gold ribbing, and a lot of the black title ribbon had the title on it. But what was interesting is that the Book of Mormon was printed over about a 9-month period, and there were actually quite a few binders. And so if you see the title ribbon of this one compared to the title ribbon of others, there was actually different font sizings depending on which binder it was. So this is called the small font. And inside also is an inscription for John Gould. And let's see if I've got it. Yeah, there it is. In one of the back, it says, presented to the Nicholson family. I don't know what, maybe it's Charles Nicholson, by Joseph Smith in Plano, Illinois in 1870s. And this is actually Joseph Smith III's inscription. And so these books would be recycled often. That so one family would have it, and then, oh, hey, Joseph III, here's one that we had in our bookshelf. Here's it back to you. And it was re-given and re-gifted back to the Nicholson family. I think the Nicholsons were distant cousins of the Smiths as well. And so interesting that we have a Joseph Smith III inscription.
Oh, wow.
So have you run into like unexpected discoveries and things you just didn't expect to find while you've been doing this?
Yeah, in fact, I would love help with this from the Smith family, because we're going to go into a couple of them that are really interesting, because I don't know much about this one or that one or this one. And so if the Smith family could ever reach out to me saying, oh yeah, here's the story behind this and that and the other, it would be really helpful. What we have is, because I've got one, this one is in University of Utah up in Salt Lake. And it is, once again, an 1830 Book of Mormon, as I mentioned. This has got a larger font size, and it's just beautiful. They're really nice to look at. But the inscription is what I'm looking at, and the inscription has this in it. It is a inscription of Emily Hale. And I'm looking at an Emily Hale, and this is earmarked as Emma's copy. And I'm not sure if Emma was ever looked at as Emily or if something, but this was kind of earmarked, and the verbal tradition on this one is that this is Emma's copy. And once again, it's at the University of Utah by a last name of Hale, and it's Emily Hale. Now, also next to it is another copy of the Book of Mormon owned by University of Utah, and it's a Joseph Smith inscription from Harmony, Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. And this is an 1830 Book of Mormon with a Joseph Smith inscription from Harmony, Pennsylvania. So,
oh, wow.
And what's funny is University of Utah really likes that they've got Joseph and Emma's copy of the Book of Mormon up in Salt Lake rather than in BYU. And so this is Joseph Smith's copy on that. So the other one that I wanted to ask the Smith family on was, this is a book at BYU, and the inscriptions on the back have an L.B. Smith in San Benito, January of 1851. And I don't know who L.B. Smith is in San Benito, but it's his book in January of 1851. And so this is an 1840 copy of the Book of Mormon. Let's see. Yeah, 1840 copy of the Book of Mormon, and it is, it's got a red bookplate, a red title ribbon on it. So there you go.
So can anyone like go into UVU and look at these? Book of Mormons? Will they allow that?
Yes. So inside every library, there is a special collections library. And I'd never known this before I started this as well. Like when I went to university, like the special collections library was like, oh, you don't touch there, you don't go there, you know. But interesting librarians say, no, it's just a place where you can look at the books in the room. We just won't let you check it out, out the door. And so you can look at it in the room. They're happy to let you take pictures of it, things like that. So
Nice.
special collections is not as spooky as what I once thought it was.
So, what is the oldest Book of Mormon you found? Is that
The 1830 volumes are there. We found Samuel, to then go maybe a little step outside of Joseph Smith's direct descendants. Samuel Smith has his copy. We've recorded Samuel Smith's copy. And as church history will say, that Samuel Smith was one of the first missionaries to take the Book of Mormon and then start spreading it. So we've got his personal copy, and I'm not sure if that's one of the first ones versus he took one after he distributed all of the ones that he was required to. But
so? Where
Samuel
is
Smith,
his copy at? Where is his copy at?
in private collection. Let's see if I can find it. So this is an 1830 Book of Mormon, and it actually has his book sticker on it. Samuel Smith's Book of Kirtland, Ohio. And so that's a bookplate sticker from Samuel Smith's copy. Now, Kirtland was, once again, 1831 through 1837. So it really just depends on when Samuel Smith put this bookplate sticker in. But it is his copy. And nicely preserved. What's interesting also, the leather on this was not they kind of cut corners because the leather was just an average leather as compared to like the really fine New York books, New York City books, if you will. And so they really don't hold up very well until they've been preserved. And then also there's quite a bit of marbling. So we say that the cover, the spine, and the title page actually create a fingerprint for each copy of the Book of Mormon. And so going through that, we can kind of tell that each one has unique features of it. So it's really kind of fun seeing each copy of the Book of Mormon.
I wanted to ask about the 1869 Deseret alphabet edition. It's really quite rare.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you have, if you can share a little bit about the history of it, and have you stumbled upon one of those yet?
Yeah. So when the Saints were moving westward, they knew that a lot of the migrants were from different languages other than English-speaking languages, specifically Scandinavia and a lot of others. And so there was a thought to say, how can we help the early saints learn English better? And so the Deseret alphabet was basically a shorthand to learn verbal English. And so from 1860 through 1869, the early saints started developing the Deseret alphabet. Real interesting concept. It didn't take off too well because of a couple things. Finding print, like a typeset for it, was rare. And so newspapers couldn't print as fast as they could with the Deseret alphabet. And book printers just had a hard time printing that much. And so in 1869, they did have a Book of Mormon that was printed, and the problem is there was only 500 copies, and only out of the 500 copies, about half of them were water damaged. So not all of them got to be preserved or distributed, and so that is a very limited print run. The other thing is, in 1870 or so, the Transcontinental Railroad came through that gave a lot of printed material from the East Coast, magazines, newspapers, other books, things like that. And so printed competition just saturated it back with English, and so it kind of died down after the Transcontinental Railroad. So I'll show you one of my favorites on the census project currently. We got one, and I submitted to a university saying, hey, you have a Deseret alphabet book. What, can you give us pictures of it? And they said, well, we don't know much about it, and if you've got any information, let us know. And so they had us look at it, And let's see if I can. Let's see if I can. Back to it. So the inscription on it was fascinating, and I couldn't understand this, but it was, one script said Lizzie Sherman, Salt Lake, 1870, gifted by Joe Smith Apostle. And I couldn't understand, what is Joe Smith Apostle in 1870, and actually it's Joseph F. Smith. And then the other one is Historian's Office of April 1870. And this signature is Joseph, like the middle signature is Joseph F. Smith's inscription. And then it's presented by Lizzie Sherman, 1886. And so I didn't know who Lizzie Sherman was, and I was having a hard time understanding Sherman in the late 1870s. And I submitted this picture to my good friend Brent Ashworth in Provo, and he said, well, take a look at the Sherman name in the 1870s. Who is this? And I didn't know. He's like, this is General Sherman of Civil War. And lo and behold, that the text and the inscription above is actually General Sherman's writing, and it's actually General Sherman's handwriting. And it was, my guess is that General Sherman went to Salt Lake, got this Book of Mormon as a gift, and then regifted it to his daughter Lizzie. And so this is General Sherman's daughter, a copy of the Desert Alphabet book from Joseph F. Smith. And so you have Desert Alphabet, you have early Mormon memorabilia, and you have Civil War details all inside one copy of the Book of Mormon. And this is 1869 Desert Alphabet copy.
Can we see some of the pages of that book as well?
Yeah, let's see. So if you see a Desert Alphabet,
Wow.
Desert Alphabet has the Book of Mormon, and it also has a like a cheat sheet or an index that shows which symbols represent the verbal English. And so the of and the are, no, just the letter the words the is the only symbol that has the word the, and then everything else is a letter. Also, they expanded the vowels. So in A versus an A versus an O, or different vowels on this as well. So this is Desert Alphabet.
Wow.
It's just reminiscent to me of a little bit of the Cherokee alphabet. There's some similarities in how the letters are.
That's what they had said. The gentleman that organized this was a shorthander, and the shorthander had various symbols that would create sounds or things like that you could do shorthand. And so he was very knowledgeable with shorthand. And I think the Cherokee symbols came from a shorthand template as well. So, yeah.
Wow, fascinating.
That's very interesting.
And the one that is a claim to fame, let's see if I can show this to you. You had mentioned, are all of them real? And let's see if I can see this one. So this is an 1830 Book of Mormon. And if you'll see it, there is a Joseph Smith inscription. And everyone's like, oh, this is a Joseph Smith inscription. And this one is actually a Mark Hoffman inscription. And so the history behind it is Mark Hoffman would actually take original copies, such as an 1830 Book of Mormon, and he would embellish. And so unfortunately, this is not Joseph Smith's signature. It's a Mark Hoffman that he would then try to improve on an 1830 Book of Mormon. And so the interesting thing about it is, once again, it's an original 1830 Book of Mormon. And my thought is, because this is a Hoffman, came through the Hoffman hands, the details behind this is just as special and just as unique in terms of learning about this copy. Unfortunately, it's not Joseph Smith's signature. So kind of food for thought that not everything that's shiny is, not everything that glitters is golden, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting.
So my thought is we're only about 2 years into this project, and I know that I've only covered about a third of like what is out there. And I know that in the next course of a couple of years, we're working to get this out, get this known, so that everyone kind of feels comfortable about submitting details. The momentum for this year is getting pretty good, and I'm very happy with the results that we're getting so far. And I know that as we get closer to the 2030, I'll probably have different stories in another couple of years around some things that we found that are new or special or different. This is once again just tip of the iceberg because of only the couple of years that we've just started. So,
Wow.
but what I wanted to express is that it's real interesting that the Smith family is so ingrained with the printing of the Book of Mormon, and the printing of the Book of Mormon is so influential in what the Smith family did that all the time when we go through this, you can't separate the two. And it's just so fascinating seeing either how Joseph Smith interacted with the Book of Mormon or family members or things like that, especially when people were proud to hold their book and then maybe gift it to somebody else and then say, oh yeah, this is so-and-so's book. Or Samuel Smith gave me this book and now I cherish it. So real interesting to see how the census is going to play out in the next couple of years, as well as what maybe new gems that we'll see as well. So,
can I just ask, like on a personal level, how has this influenced your faith walk and your perspective on church history?
Yeah. One of my comments is that church history has influenced printing of the Book of Mormon, and Book of Mormon has influenced church history. What we say is that the first Book of Mormon was printed in 1830 in Palmyra, but that was quickly distributed and they left to go to Kirtland. Well, in Kirtland, they had a need for new Book of Mormon, and so that's why there was an 1837 requirement of printing. The problem was that this was a missionary tool, and having a large volume, significant volume, would have been hard, and so they actually printed a smaller version, and so the 1837 is very, very small. And the 1841 and the 1840 copies are similar as well, because just they could hold more in a backpack or a satchel as they did missionary work. And so I find that the printing of the Book of Mormon, having something physical in your hand, really means something. And as a missionary, going around handing out physical copies of the Book of Mormon made all the difference to me, and I was really glad about it. I remember the first time that I did hold an 1830 Book of Mormon. It was at Moon's Rare Books in Provo, Utah. And Reed Moon is great to kind of show copies of the Book of Mormon. And I got to hold one, and it's like, wow, what stories could you tell if you could talk? And he's got the provenance on his, and it was really nice to kind of see and hear the stories of that. And I'm glad that I've got the ability to then share it on the census. As you'd mentioned, not everyone can, hold a copy of the Book of Mormon, but they can still see the stories behind it. How did one has burn marks at the very bottom, and I think that that's either a candle burning. And imagine in the 1800s, no electricity. You have to have a candle and hold a book with the candle in between you to kind of reflect the light to see it. And what would happen if you fringed the edges of a book and you're feeling bad that you fringed the edges of a book? Or like what stories could be told by these various copies. And so, yeah, it's really impacted me knowing that these still survive, and I can be a part of sharing it with others as well.
That does help people to get in touch with the history, to see, if they can't hold them, at least to be able to see them. And I know Angeline and I both have done firesides, and every now and then we'll get someone who comes up and they'll make a comment like that. It makes it more real for them, to hear the stories and to be able to shake hands with descendants. It's the same thing with the books. When you can see and hold the books, it gets you that much closer to that history, and it seems it's just that it's that connect I was talking about. I haven't had. There was a young girl. She was like 9. She was at a home fireside, and she came up afterwards. She goes, "Are you really Joseph Smith's second great granddaughter?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You mean he's really real?" I was like, "Yeah, he was a real person." So it's what you're doing is just so amazing. Sorry about that. I I just love our whole family. I know Angeline, you've held Joseph and Emma's Bible recently, haven't you?
Mhm.
It's just a feeling. Can you talk about it a little bit? How that felt to hold that?
It definitely brings it to reality. It helps me to understand it, and I wish I could grasp it a little bit better. I feel like there's a huge block in my mind, but holding her Book of Mormon, knowing that she flipped through the pages and that Joseph, they were reading from these pages, and it meant a lot to me. It brings a totally different spirit, a more sacred type of spirit. And so I've heard, like, there's so many stories back in, you know, the time when they were distributing the Book of Mormons, and there's many stories about them giving a Book of Mormon, and when the person receives it, they knew it was true, and they just grasped onto the gospel and quickly were converted. And then, like Gracia talks about her history, and that when she held the Book of Mormon, she knew it. She knew it and didn't doubt it. And like my own testimony of the Book of Mormon, I didn't really have a strong testimony of the Book of Mormon. I grew up, I read it, I did it all, everything I was supposed to do, but I never fully had a testimony of it until my dad had asked us to write down our testimonies of the Book of Mormon so that he could distribute it in Book of Mormons to some of the descendants. I don't even remember what he was fully doing with it. And it may not have been the Book of Mormon. I don't remember, but he asked us to write out our testimonies. I'm like, I don't know what to write. I don't know. I read it. It was good. And so I was praying about it and for days, and I wasn't so sure on what to write. And then one night, my husband and I were reading this book, a very, very good book, Mistborn. Nothing bad about it, just a good fiction book. And we really get into this book and we're like, okay, we need to put this book away and read our scriptures so that we don't miss our scripture reading for the night, because we know we're going to keep reading this other book. And so my husband closed that book and put it aside, and we pulled out the Book of Mormon and opened it. And the moment he did that, the entire room changed. It's just a boom. Like, you could feel the spirit so strong. You could feel there's just something different. And we both felt it. And we both looked at each other like, did you feel that? And he's like, I felt that. Oh my gosh. And I knew in that moment that there is something different about this book. There is something more powerful that carries this strong spirit. And I knew from that moment, just as my grandmother and Kim's grandmother said, that this book is of divine authenticity. And I cannot doubt that. And I am grateful for that experience, because I know that it carries, oh gosh, spirit.
Yeah. My first encounter with the Book of Mormon, I didn't know I was a descendant until I was 12, and then we were at my grandma and grandpa Smith's house, and he was an apostle and a secretary in Church of Christ Temple lot, and their version of the Book of Mormon was just like the original. It wasn't broken up in verses. It was just the exact same. And I just kind of thumbed through it and put it back down and put my hand on it. And when I put my hand on it, something just went right through me. And there was a voice that said this was a divine book, and it was of God, and that it was true. And it would be many years later before I would read it. But I had my testimony of it before I ever read the book, because the Holy Ghost. So it's very powerful. Yeah.
Wow. You're right, and it brings to thought, when I was a young missionary, I was on a bike, and I went over my handlebars and broke my collarbone. And so I couldn't ride a bike anymore. We could just walk, and I couldn't even carry a backpack. So all I could carry was a copy of the Book of Mormon. And I was thinking, well, if I can't carry anything, what could I carry? And the Book of Mormon was it. And so that became real for me. And I know that it's not Smith related, and I know it's not 1830 Book of Mormon related, but it's for me, the Book of Mormon became important for me, not just something that I had to do. And I think every person has a story like that, or should have a story like that, that says it was important to me and it was my experience. And once again, that's how the Spirit works, one person at a time, one moment at a time. And each person will have their own experience to feel the way that they need to feel in order to get what they need out of it.
Yes, for sure. I do want to ask as well, what is the furthest Book of Mormon you have found from Nauvoo?
We just recorded the Frankfurt, Germany Book of Mormon, and as mentioned, it is in Europe, and it's in the what's called the receiving room. And I guess temples internationally will have like a get out of the rain and storm, and maybe a coat rack and a receiving room, not necessarily a visitor center, but like before the recommend desk, and it's there. And so one in Frankfurt, Germany, is the furthest away. We are tracking the ones that were from Great Britain in 1841. Most of them came back over to the United States with the migrants that came over. But quite a few of them are still in Great Britain. And so seeing the one in the British Library, we've got that one recorded in the British Library. There's a couple others that are in Europe that we're tracking down as well. So,
how can the general public or people interested, like scholars, how can they get information that you're compiling?
So the website is called Book of Mormon, bookofmormoncensus.com. There is a contact page that will go to me if once again, private individuals want to talk with me about their copies of their Book of Mormon. I would love to be in conversation with them to make sure that they're confident to give me pictures. We're looking for pictures, provenance, how, what the background story around who's acquired it, and then we can post it to the website. We are also knowing that if you have leads of, oh yeah, so-and-so, or as you mentioned, I have friends in Utah, or I have so-and-so in Utah, have them refer them to the website and refer them to me. I'd love to talk to just about anybody about this. So if Private Collectors or Smith Family has details regarding something that I'm unaware of, I'd love to have conversations with them. Usually through the Book of Mormon Census.com website is the contact page there too.
Okay, is there a place on that website if people want to contribute or support what you're doing? Is there?
Oh, I'm too late. You're too early to ask me this. This has been private, but I am going to be looking for sponsors, and I think if this continues, and as this gets bigger, I am looking for sponsors. But I haven't asked my hand out, or I haven't put my hand out yet. This has been kind of privately funded. But if somebody really wants to contribute, I am looking for contributors. My expenses is travel, mailings, internet hosting, a couple of things like that. It's manageable, but I would love maybe a patron to help as well. But I'm not asking for it just yet. So.
Okay.
That's great. Do you have any other stories, any other books that you would like to share and let us see?
The one that I'll connect with you about, and I don't have pictures with me currently, is the Salt Lake has the Church History Library, which is different than the Church Museum. The Church History Library is specifically the library, and if you go in, they have a display case, and it is Hyrum Smith's personal copy of the Book of Mormon, and it's in the same black decorative cover that we showed the Emma Smith copy on, and it is Hyrum Smith's copy, and it was the copy that was in the Carthage jail when Joseph and Hyrum were martyred. And was it 2009? One of the general authorities showed this in General Conference, and
Elder Holland, I believe.
Elder Holland, yeah, he had the page. The page was torn, folded down, and it's still folded down. And that copy is actually on display in the church history library. And if you go to there, like every time have tears in my eyes on around seeing this, because this was what's called the martyrdom copy, Joseph Hiram's copy that was with them when they were martyred. Huge electricity on that one, and we call it the Spirit, and for specific reasons, because it is powerful to know the history behind this one. It went with Hiram Smith's widow. Was it Mary Fielding? Mm-hmm. And then Mary Fielding went to Utah, and so that's why it came across to Utah with that. But that one, hands down, has a lot of spirit to it that makes you feel just good inside, and knowing that there's something to the restoration. So that's my favorite. Because it's in church history library, and the church history library has not officially opened up to the census. They're working on it, and in time it'll happen. But if you go into the church history library, it's there on display. So.
Oh wow, that is amazing. Kim, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm just sitting here drinking all of this in, and wanting to go and see all of these things. So I have to put more on my bucket list when I come to Utah this summer.
Yeah. And Robert, is there anything else you want to add?
No, thank you so much for this. As mentioned, this is a work in progress, and I'm glad that I could show some of the Smith-specific copies. As we go further on, it will continue to grow, as well as it only is good if all owners of the Book of Mormon kind of, I don't say participate, but know the value of recording this for a proper copy count. And I'm glad that I'm part of it. It's keeps me out of trouble. So
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And we will see you next time.